Hey, geography students. It is, let's see, Tuesday, April 28th, and I'm standing in Chapman's room, and it's really dirty, and I don't want you to see it. But he's a college kid, and I guess he can do that. But I wanted to show you the maps on his wall. All right, so he is my little world traveler. He's the probably of all of our family, the one that likes to travel the most. But today, if I can get around the stuff on his floor, I want to show you where we're heading to. We're heading to England. We're going to the United Kingdom. Totally excited, so follow me. Here we go. Get out of his room. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Okay. I'm walking through my house. I'm going back down to the bedroom. There's my two puppies. Say hi. Say hi. Okay, I have to keep them out of my bedroom because they bark too much. And there's a storm coming. Oh, hold on. Say hi, Chapman.
What's up, guys?
That's where he's doing his class.
In my meeting in 18 minutes.
He's got a meeting, yeah, he's got a late meeting. So anyway, I'm heading back into the bedroom. Okay, come on in, you can come in. If they start barking, I'll have to tell them to be quiet. But today, we are going to England. To the United Kingdom, I should say. That's a more proper way to say it. Get you guys situated. Okay. Hope you guys are having a great week. I know this is the first time we've met this week. Oh, I forgot Captain America. Hold on. There we go. You're just gonna barely see his head today. There we go. All right, so when we left off last week, we had started our trip of Europe. We started out in Northern Europe. I'm gonna move you guys over a smidgen. There we go. We started out in Northern Europe and we visited the Scandinavian countries. We talked about the Vikings. And today we're going to go to the United Kingdom. And we have a fact of the day. And so we're going to actually start out with the fact of the day today that I don't have pulled up. So I'm going to look for it real quick. Let's see here. Yep. There it is. All right. One of the most famous landmarks, ancient landmarks, in the United Kingdom is a funny little circle with really, really large stones called Stonehenge. I think I've got a couple of you in this class that have actually visited there. I believe Austin has been there, or at least did a drive-by of it. And I'm going to bet that perhaps Harley Price's family has also visited there. If any of the rest of you have visited Stonehenge, please email me and let me know. I would love to see pictures. I'm going to go through my fact of the day. So on your Google Doc form, you've got the space again to write in your facts of the day. If you would, write 6 of them. And let's see here. If you want to write them out beforehand, you can, and then transfer it over. But I'm going to go ahead and read through this. So I got some really cool pictures of it. To me, Stonehenge looks like something that perhaps someone from outer space created. Its circular nature, the fact that we don't really know the history of it. We're just kind of guessing based upon excavation and archaeologists and oral tradition. We're just kind of guessing, but there is actually an oil painting, no, it's a watercolor painting that was done in the 1500s by somebody who came across it and observed it, and so they just sat down and they painted a painting of it. It looks very, very similar to the way that it looks today. It's also the favorite location for Druids and other people that are worshipers of nature and Mother Earth and all of that stuff. I actually have a relative that is into that. And so they have festivals and such there periodically over the course of the year. So anyway, I'm going to go read through my fact of the day, and I want you guys to pay attention. Okay. Fact of the day, Stonehenge is a prehistoric monument in England. It consists of a ring of standing stones, which each standing stone is about 13 feet high, 7 feet wide, and each of them weigh about 25 tons. The stones are set within earthworks in the middle of the most dense complex of Neolithic and Bronze Age monuments in England. That was a mouthful, including several hundred burial mounds around the area. So they have found bones and that sort of thing. Archaeologists believe that Stonehenge was constructed sometime between 3000 and 2000 BC. So this again, if we're talking biblical history, this coincides approximately with the time of the flood. The flood took place, the worldwide flood took place sometime during those two, 1,000-year millenniums. And so I suspect it was probably created after the flood. I don't know that those stones, even though they're very significantly heavy, I don't know that they would survive a worldwide flood. It says the surrounding circular earth bank around the stones and the ditch, so there's a ditch, which constitutes the earliest phase of the monument, have been dated back to as late as 3000 BC. Currently, the property and the monument is owned by the Crown, the monarchy of England. So Queen Elizabeth has her own Stonehenge. Stonehenge could have been a burial ground from its earliest beginnings. Deposits containing human bones date back almost all the way to 3000 BC, when the ditch and the bank were first dug, and they continued for another 500 years. So they found burial grounds and bones within this complex that they range in age about 500-year difference. So they think at its earliest it was used as a burial area. Stonehenge was produced by a culture that left no written records. Many aspects of Stonehenge, such as how it was built and what purpose it was used for, remain the subject of debate. A number of myths surround the stones, the site, specifically the Great Trilithon, the encompassing horseshoe arrangement of 5 central trilithons, the heel stone, and the embanked avenue are aligned to the sunset of the winter solstice and the opposing sunrise of the summer solstice. So when you see the picture, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about, the way the stones are aligned. A natural landform at the monument's location followed this line and probably inspired its construction. The excavated remains of animal bones suggest that people may have gathered at the site for the winter rather than the summer. So it was a place where they were there in the winter time. Further astronomical associations and the precise astronomical significance of the site for its people are a matter of speculation and debate. Druids and other worshippers have gathered at Stonehenge for years. If you were to visit Stonehenge today, you can actually go up to the monument area, or you can just do a big drive through around it. You don't actually have to get out. It depends on how busy it is. A lot of people that I know that drive out there, that have driven out there to see it, didn't want to actually get out. I'm totally going to go out and see it. But because of the crowds and the lines, they chose to just drive by and say, yeah, I've seen Stonehenge. But if I ever have a chance, I'm definitely going to go see it. So I want you to make note of the pictures that I have of Stonehenge. One of the pictures, a couple of them actually, are drawings. There's like a charcoal drawing of what it would have looked like when it was completely finished. You'll see the horseshoe shape in the middle, which probably served as some sort of, I'm guessing, religious area, maybe a high altar area, and then the main perimeter of the circle, when the stones were all standing, had kind of ceiling beams. It was an open air circle, but they connected all of the standing beams. And then you see several ditches where perhaps there were burial grounds. I have read somewhere that when they unearthed several different areas where there were bodies that were buried, there was nothing significant about the bones that led them to believe that the people had been tortured, that they had been sacrificed in some sort of a weird religious ceremony. And generally, there's indications that apparently in the bones that something traumatic happened, like you see in like a lot of old English prisons or in the Roman Empire, the feet bones would be detached from the leg bone, or the hand bones, like they'd been chopped off, which was common to be quartered, you know, thousands of years ago. So, and actually not even that long ago, hundreds of years ago. There's also a couple of aerial pictures of Stonehenge that I think are fascinating, because when you see the aerial photos of them, you can see the ditch around them. So I'm assuming it was created that way initially, maybe served as some sort of moat or a flood control area. But it is amazing how perfectly symmetrical it is. I'm thinking 3,000 years before the birth of Christ, how on earth did they create such a perfect circle? I can't even draw a perfect circle if I'm using a, can't think of what it's called. So it's perfectly symmetrical. I also want you to pay close attention to the really, really cool watercolor drawing that it, or painting. It was painted by, gonna mess up the name, Lucas de Heer between 1573 and 1575. It's the earliest known realistic painting of Stonehenge that is in anybody's possession. So I can imagine the person going, oh, this is cool, plopping down and painting a picture of it. So it's quite beautiful. So, okay, so hopefully you got 6 things out of that. I kind of was all over the place. All right, so as we head into our next discussion, I'm going to just really quickly talk about where we've been in our discussion of, I'm going to move Captain America. Come here, Cap. I just finished, which one did I finish? I can't remember the name of it, but I've watched about 10 Marvel movies, and I'm loving them. Channing wants me to watch another one tonight, so I'm hoping to do that tonight. But anyway, Captain America, I've lost his shield. It's here somewhere. I know that's a really bad thing, but he is super strong even without his shield. So anyway, all right, so I'm going to do a little review where we were last week, and then we're going to dive into our lesson today. Okay? All right, so in your PowerPoint, you'll notice the very first slide after our fact of the day is the slide that just says review. And it's got a picture from our previous PowerPoint, a picture that shows the student travel brochure project. And then it has a picture of the map of Europe, which I've given you the map of Europe. You guys have picked your European countries that you want to do your travel brochure on. And Mrs. Campbell said she was going to send you the instructions for the travel brochure so you could get started if you wanted to. And Mrs. Campbell forgot. So I plan on sending that to you today. And I'm probably going to give you, you know, most of the rest of the school year to finish it. So you'll have like 2.5 weeks or so to finish it. So no rush. It won't take you that long. You can whip it out in probably a half a day or a couple hours if you just put your mind to it. It will be a project grade, so it will be counted as a test grade. So for those of you that struggle in just traditional tests, this will be a great opportunity for you to get a good grade in that project category. And when we do test over Europe, you are going to have information on Europe, your facts of the day, general information, and you're also going to have the map portion. So it's going to be a double whammy. It's going to be a tough one. So make sure that you are starting now to commit to memory the countries of Europe. You already know a lot of them, but there's a lot of little countries in Eastern Europe, and Central Europe gets a little bit confusing to some people. So make sure that you are spending some time reviewing that. And I'll try to send you a link to that that online map game that like the one that I sent you for Africa. All right, the next review slide shows you the 4 different regions of Europe that we're going to go to. We're starting in Northern Europe. I think next we're going to go to West Central Europe because I would like to touch on probably Germany next. Germany has the largest economy in Europe. We deal with them quite a bit. There's a huge history with Germany. So I think I'm going to go to Germany next, or to Central or West Central Europe next, and then Eastern Europe. So those are the 4 areas of Europe that we're going to cover. We're starting with Northern Europe, and just to remind you, Northern Europe includes Iceland, Ireland, the United Kingdom. Then our Scandinavian countries are Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. I call the Norway, Sweden, and Finland the 3 little fingers that hang down from the top of the Arctic. Norway, Sweden, Finland. I don't know how to help you remember that. It's kind of stuck in my brain, but if you can memorize it that way, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, I think that it helps. And we spent a little bit of time talking about the Vikings on Wednesday or Thursday of last week. We went to Iceland, and I hope that you guys enjoyed all of the different video clips that you watched. Everything from Walter Mitty and The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and the very, very cool Viking chant that the Icelandic soccer players did with the crowd in Reykjavik, Iceland. Iceland is on my bucket list. I have a lot of things on my bucket list, and nobody can go anywhere right now. So we're all kind of stuck here, but in my mind, it's definitely on my bucket list. Today we're going to be going to Norway before we jump into the United Kingdom, and I most certainly want to visit Norway. So let's see here. We talked a little bit, just general information about Europe, the population of Europe. Europe makes up about 7% of the land surface in the world. There are a little less than 1 billion people that live in Europe and all of the countries of Europe. We talked about the religious history of Europe a little bit, the Catholics and the Protestants, and then we talked about what the languages are based on. There's the Romantic languages, which include, they're Latin-based languages that include primarily the Spanish, the French, the Italians, and then the Germanic languages. English is a Germanic language, and then the Slavic languages of Russia, Ukraine, and Polish. Shout out to Oliver Ball, who called me on the carpet for saying awful things about the Russian language and saying that it was not a beautiful language. He disagrees with me. He thinks that the Russian language or the Slavic languages are beautiful. We're just going to have to agree to disagree. So I asked him, have you ever heard Vladimir Putin talk? And he still thinks that Russian is a beautiful language. So, okay, some of our definitions that we had in our last lesson was Northern Europe, which we already talked about. The British Isles, which are Ireland, the UK, and about 6,000 other smaller islands around the big islands. We talked about fjords, and today in our video, the first video we're going to watch on Norway, you're going to see unbelievable, phenomenal fjords. The video that you're going to watch on Norway is probably one of my favorite videos, that at least travel videos, that I show in all of geography. And I'll hold out for that for just a second. But if you recall, fjords are waterways and canyons and cliffs that are carved out by glaciers as they move across the landscape. And if you remember, glaciers are always moving, and they're moving to the area of least resistance. So they move across land masses and eventually make their way to the ocean. Sometimes they create those shelves, ice shelves, until they break off and become icebergs and they float in the ocean. Well, Norway, which is the northernmost countries of, the westernmost countries of Norway, Sweden, and Finland, the entire coastline into the North Atlantic are just carved out by these fjords, and they're absolutely gorgeous. We talked about the North Atlantic Drift, which is an ocean current that comes from the Western Hemisphere, the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico down by Florida, and they make their way up to the area of Ireland and England, and it creates it provides a warm air mass that moves across those islands, so they're not quite as cold as most of the countries in the Arctic Circle would be. And then you watched a video on the Northern Lights and the Aurora Borealis. I hope you enjoyed that. I actually found that one very fascinating. And then finally, Scandinavian. When we're talking about Scandinavian countries, we are generally talking about Norway, Sweden, Denmark. And sometimes, depending on what book you read, they also throw in Iceland and Finland with that. So they're Northern European countries minus England and Ireland. Okay, all right, so the next PowerPoint slide that you're going to see is an incredibly beautiful, cozy, cute little village in a fjord along the cliffs and mountains of Norway. And so I want you to watch the video. It's probably 15 minutes long or so, something like that. I don't actually think it's that long, but the person who produced the video, he is actually a model that travels in different capacities. He's a model for outdoor clothing, coats and that sort of thing. And so he was flown to Norway to do some photography shoots. And so he does some of his own photography while he's there, and he brings his drone. And some of the places that he goes are some of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Interesting. Well, I'll just watch it. It's just crazy cool. I've never looked to see, he probably has other videos, but I just really, really like this one. So enjoy it. And then when you're done, we're going to go to the United Kingdom. So hit pause, go to watch the movie, and then come back. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about the United Kingdom. Now, full disclosure, I am not an expert on the United Kingdom, and there are probably those among you that know more about it than I do. I will say that I'm a bit of a royal family groupie. I grew up admiring Princess Diana from afar, fascinated historically with the monarchs of England. Sometimes I forget that that's not all the British Empire is the royal family. Actually, the British Empire is extremely diverse. People from all over the world that were all at some point in time whose relatives were part of the British Empire have moved to the island. So they have an extremely diverse culture. If you were to go to London today, you would probably see people that looked a lot different than you would see people that look a lot like you. Historically speaking, a lot of our way of life, our way of doing things, our value systems, our religious expressions are very similar to the British more than other European countries. They tend to be a little bit more prudish. We tend to be a little bit more prudish. I'm going to use an example that'll probably get me in trouble, but in most European countries, if you were to go to the beach, you would see people that were, let's just say, not dressed very modestly. If you go to England, while the water is really too cold to swim, people are much, much more modest. If you go to public beaches in the United States, while you may see people wearing skimpy little bathing suits, you're not going to see them completely naked, for instance. That would be against our laws. I remember when my husband and I went to Jamaica for our 10th year anniversary. We stayed at a European resort, unbeknownst to us, and the people were dressed fairly immodestly. And we found ourselves one night taking a walk on the beach with a couple of little old ladies from the island of England, and they gave me an earful about how improper most of the rest of Europe was, and how could they dress like that? It's so inappropriate. They were darling. So we have a lot of things in common with our British brethren. So I am definitely a royal family groupie, and that's going to show up in this PowerPoint. So I'm sorry. Some of you are going to enjoy it. Some of you, probably you boys, are going to roll your eyes. Too bad. I do have a picture of Doctor Who on here. So that's for all of you boys. Now, I don't have any pictures of Benedict Cumberbatch, who was, I thought, the British character in the Marvel movies playing Doctor Strange, but apparently Doctor Strange is an American character, and now that I think about it, I think he uses an American accent while he's portraying the character. But anyway, okay, so you'll see the flag of the United Kingdom. I will say, as a history teacher, I teach U.S. history, this is always confusing to me trying to figure out, well, is it England, or is it the British, or is it the United Kingdom? So I will just tell you up front that I am going to use those expressions, what's the word? I will use those expressions and mean the same thing. If I say England, I'm talking about the British, and I'm also talking about the United Kingdom. Whereas technically England is one of the countries of the United Kingdom. So when America fought the British during the American Revolution, it was not the United Kingdom yet. It was the British Empire. It was Great Britain. They did not become the United Kingdom until after the American Revolution, when they acquired Northern Ireland, and Northern Ireland, Wales, England, and Scotland made up the island's United Kingdom. And if you think about the words United Kingdoms. They're talking about the various countries that are part of their kingdom. Their political system is interesting. The autonomy that those individual countries have within the United Kingdom is similar to the way that we have 50 states, but we're the United States, we're one country, but there's 50 individual states with individual governments. It's sort of like that. It's not exactly the same, but it's sort of like that. So, all right, so if you will take a note of the map, once you I didn't circle it, find the United Kingdom. It screams at you, the United Kingdom. You'll also notice the island of Ireland is right next to the United Kingdom, and you'll notice that the northern part of Ireland is kind of a beige color. That part where it says Belfast, it has the city of Belfast. The northern part of Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. That's the part I was just talking about. The northern part of Ireland historically is predominantly Protestant. The rest of Ireland is predominantly Catholic. And so there was always, it depends on who you talk to in Ireland, but there tended to be more support in the northern parts of Ireland to be part of the United Kingdom, much more so than the rest of Ireland. So they are part of the United Kingdom. The northern part of the island of the United Kingdom is Scotland. If you see where it says Edinburgh and Glasgow, that is Scotland. And Wales is not identified specifically on this. So I think it's Cardiff, where you see the city of called Cardiff. That is the little area known as Wales, or the country known as Wales. Now this for you soccer people. Okay, so for Eston, who are my other soccer players in that group? Boys soccer players. There's girl soccer players too now. Eston, you came to mind. Gareth Bale is one of the most amazing soccer players in the world. And Gareth Bale is from Wales. So we think of him as being from the United Kingdom, but technically when the World Cup forms their competitive teams, they do it by country. And so Gareth Bale has never been able to participate in the World Cup because his country of Wales, which is part of the United Kingdom, is so small, they've never had enough talent to compete competitively against the other countries of the world. So that's just an example of how the individual countries operate. Okay, I'm going to go through the nuts and bolts of the United Kingdom. These are just general facts. You'll see them there on the PowerPoint. I didn't mention this before, but it's always a good idea to print out the text of the PowerPoints, the definitions, the fact of the day, just so that you have those to take notes on. If I say additional things, it's always a good idea to note those in the margin. So the United Kingdom has a population of about 66 million people. Their form of government is a constitutional monarchy. And essentially what that means is that they've got a king and they've got a queen, depending on, right now they have a queen, but they have a king or queen, and that that king or queen has no true legal power. They are figureheads. The country is governed by a constitution and an elected parliament, and the king or the queen is subject to that constitution, just like everybody else in the country. Now, England or the United Kingdom has protocols in place which require, for instance, the Prime Minister to ask the Queen's permission before they form a government, or before they do this or they do that. And they have formalities that they have to go through, but that's largely in part due to their constitution. And so that constitutional monarchy kind of emerged throughout the course of time. Even as early as the American Revolution, which was in the 1770s, 1780s, that constitutional monarchy was already developing. The king had more power and sway then, but they still had a more significant role than they do today. So the official language of the United Kingdom is English, of course. Let's see here. The primary religion of the United Kingdom is Protestant Christianity. You will find Catholics there, you will find Muslims there, Hindus there, but the official religion is Protestant Christian, and the official church is the Church of England. And that goes way back to King Henry VIII. The current monarch is Queen Elizabeth II. She is from the family or the House of Windsor. And she has been ruling that country since, I believe, 1952, when her father passed away. I think the ordination ceremony was in 1953. But she has been queen since 1952, so 68 years. I think that's right. Is that right? 52? No, 60. 52 to 12, so yeah, 68 years. I think that's right. She is currently the longest serving queen or king in British history. So she has been around a long time. I think she just turned 94. The capital of the entire United Kingdom is London, and I believe it's the capital of England as well. But each of the other countries of the United Kingdom has their own capital as well. Capital of Scotland is Edinburgh. The capital of Wales is Cardiff, and the capital of Northern Ireland is Belfast. But the capital of the United Kingdom is London. So to compare that to our situation here in the United States, the capital of the capital of Arkansas is Little Rock, and the capital of the United States is Washington, D.C. Most of you know this, but the British Empire controlled huge parts of the known world over the course of history, most recently in the last 300 or 400 years. There was an expression that said that the sun never set on the British Empire, and that was because there was a territorial holding of the British Empire all the way around the globe, so that no matter where the sun was setting, it was setting on some British territory somewhere. As you know, the United States, originally the 13 colonies, British colonies, we were a colonial holding of the British. What other countries have been British holdings? South Africa, I believe New Zealand, Australia, India, and they still have a number of holdings, but most of their empire has devolved or become a part of their commonwealth. At one time, 25% of the world was part of the British Empire. Today, they have 14 overseas holdings, which include the tiny country of Gibraltar, which is that little area between Europe and Africa that passes into the Mediterranean Sea. The Virgin Islands, Bermuda, places like that. So they have a few holdings, but not very many. Okay, so the first definition that you'll see in your PowerPoint says the European Union. I was trying to figure out how to explain what the European Union is to you, but I'm going to read the definition, then we're going to talk about it for a second. The European Union is an association of 28 European nations that were formed. This union was formed in 1993, before you were born, for the purpose of achieving political and economic integration. And most of those countries that are part of the European Union shared a common currency known as the euro. Now, I went to Europe, it's been many years ago, I haven't been in a long time, but it was before the European Union existed. And essentially you had to travel by passport, and when you would travel from country to country, you'd have to show your passport. So you go from Germany to France, show your passport. Each country, for the most part, had a different currency. So if you brought money to go to France and you had it transferred to French money, and then you decided to go to England, you'd have to constantly be changing your currency. It was very, very confusing, and it prevented a stellar trade, an easy trade system within the European countries. And of course, historically, the Europeans have not gotten along. They've fought each other a lot. And so the move to make this European Union was an effort to help them to get along, to have things in common. It was believed that if their economies were united, they would be less likely to fight with each other as brothers and sisters. And so it's been pretty effective for as far as preventing that. But unfortunately, because socialism is so prevalent in the European countries, a number of the countries have really struggled financially. And so those economies that are stronger than others have had to rescue some of those weaker countries. And Germany and England tended to find themselves in that position quite frequently. For instance, the country of Greece. I don't remember what the statistic is, but it's crazy. Like 50 or 60% of the people of Greece work for the federal government of Greece. And they have this mandatory retirement age of like 50 or 52. And then they had these lifelong pensions where the government of Greece promised them that as government employees, when they were forcibly retired at 50 or 52, the government would continue to pay most of their salary until they died. And so you have people living 20, 30, 40, 50 years on government pension, and people continue to retire and continue to retire till it broke the bank in Greece. And so they couldn't pay off their debts. Their economy was collapsing. And so since it was one common currency, their economic downturn was significantly damaging other member states of the European Union. So anyway, on the surface, it appeared to be a good idea, but there definitely is a downside to it as well. There was also a move for a common a shared we are the world experience, that we're all European, we're all people, we're all humans, and the distinction between the various cultures of the various European nations was kind of downplayed. Nationalism, which caused World War I and World War II to a large part, love of country, an overly zealous love of who you are and your identity as a German or as a Frenchman or as a Russian or whatever, created conflict and it resulted in war. And so the European Union was an attempt to kind of make everybody vanilla. And the British were pretty proud and didn't like to be thrown into the lump with all of the other Europeans. And so they decided they didn't want to be a part of the European Union. Let me flip to this next slide here. There's a picture here. The capital city of the European Union is in Brussels, Belgium. That's where their Congress meets. So every member state or member country has representatives that serve their country's interests at a common Congress of sorts, the European Union Parliament. Parliament's just another word for Congress. So back in, I'm going to say 2016 or so like 4 years ago, the people of the United Kingdom decided they did not want to be a part of the European Union anymore. And so they decided to, Parliament decided to let the people vote about whether or not they wanted to continue this relationship with the other European countries. Now, England never gave up its currency. So if you go to England, their currency, their dollar is the pound, basically. And so they maintained their own separate identity, their own separate currency. And of course, they're separated by the English Channel and the North Atlantic Sea from the rest of Europe. And so the people of England voted in 2016, or of the United Kingdom voted, that they didn't want to be a part of Brexit anymore. They were proud of their heritage. They were tired of getting pulled underwater because of all of the mismanagement of everybody else's economic systems. But the politicians did not want to leave the European Union. So for 4 years, they barked and fought and threw hissy fits with one another. They fired their last prime minister because she couldn't come up with a plan to separate from the European Union. So finally, in January of this year, 2020, England finally, they got a new prime minister. Parliament voted on a separation package. And I'm thinking they never did come up with a plan. They just decided to separate. So their formal legal relationship ended. England is no longer part of the European Union effective January 31st, I think, of 2020. And that whole discussion was known as Brexit. And so if you've ever heard that on the news, Brexit, 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 you've heard your parents talk about it, your grandparents talk about it, that stands for the British exit from the European Union. So Brexit, and that was the next definition in the slides. The next definition is the current Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. His name is Boris Johnson. And I found a really nice picture of him and put it on here where his hair is nice and tidy. But if you Google Boris Johnson pictures, the man's hair is like like all the time. He's compared to Donald Trump a lot. He and Donald Trump are buddies, apparently. He's a member of the Conservative Party in the British, in the United Kingdom, and he and Donald Trump have said many nice things about one another. Donald Trump was very derogatory towards the previous prime minister. It was a woman. And he loves Boris Johnson, and it might be because of his hair. I don't know. I might throw in a crazy picture just so you can see what it looks like. He's only been prime minister for about a year. He recently was hospitalized in the intensive care unit in London. He contracted COVID-19 and sounded like he was in pretty serious condition, but they never did have to put him on a ventilator. I suspect Donald Trump suggested this, or he hinted at this, that Boris Johnson possibly received some sort of trial special medication. Donald Trump said that he had, in a press conference, said that he had made it available to Boris Johnson. It sounded like it was an American manufacturing drug company that had some sort of magic potion, I guess. I don't know. They've not said, but 2 days later they announced that he was doing much better, and then he was able to leave intensive care and eventually move home. So he is okay now. So Boris Johnson. All right. So, and then hold your seats. We've got lots of fun pictures. So the next several slides, and I'm going to go through these quickly because I'm taking up way too much of your time. But I'm going to go through these quickly. The next slide after Boris Johnson is Windsor Castle. And Windsor Castle is the royal residence, the summer residence of Queen Elizabeth and her family. A lot of them live there depending on the situation, but this is where she lives and stays if she's not in London. Windsor Castle, there are a number of pictures there. I mentioned to you earlier that whenever a decision has to be made in Parliament, the Prime Minister will meet with the Queen. There's a couple of pictures here of Queen Elizabeth greeting the former Prime Minister and then the current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. They kind of curtsy to her and take her hand. Historically, I don't know if they still do this, but they kissed her hand where the royal ring with the insignia. I can't remember. I can't think of what that word is. But anyway, the ring that bears the royal crest, and they would kiss her ring. There's some pictures there. Windsor Castle's unbelievable. It's sprawling. It's beautiful. It's massive. I don't have the stats in front of me, but you'll see the pictures. Just the whole estate around it is incredibly beautiful. And historically, of course, it was designed to protect the Queen and the King, or King and Queen. King or Queen over the years. There's a picture of the inside, the courtyard of Windsor Castle. It's a picture taken from the air. You can see the towers that guarded it, the lookout towers. Most of the castles in England have that central courtyard where the family could get some fresh air, be outside, oftentimes riding horses, tending to horses, watching the soldiers would train out there, present themselves, and it's an area of green. So you'll see that in the picture. And then there's several pictures of Queen Elizabeth from the time she was first became queen until she's a little bit older. But the first picture of her there, her husband's name is Philip, Prince Philip. He was German. And she married him shortly after World War II. And there was a lot of anti-German animus in the United Kingdom because they had fought Germany. And so she talked her daddy, who was the King of England at the time, into giving him certain titles and whatnot to help people forget that he was German. But they actually were married and had 2 children before she became queen. She shouldn't have been queen, but her uncle, who had very temporarily Ben King, decided to step down from the throne because he was in love with a woman from America who had been divorced. And the Church of England would not allow their monarch to be a divorced person. And so he gave up his throne after about 6 months to Queen Elizabeth's father, which then set her in line to be the first in line to become the next monarch when her father passed away. There's a movie called The King's Speech, which is about her father. Her father had a terrible stuttering problem and was quite terrified to be king and to make public addresses on the radio and that sort of thing. He managed to overcome his fear, and he was a good leader. I think he died of lung cancer. He was a smoker. And so she prematurely became queen. She was not expecting to become queen as soon as she did. So there's a picture there with her first 2 children. They had 2 children before she was queen. They waited a period of time, and then they had 2 more children after she became queen. There are pictures of her ordination ceremony. And you'll see the beautiful crown on her head. That crown was her father's crown. It was modified to fit her head. It was revised a little bit and made smaller to fit her head. But even her own husband, Philip, had to curtsy, bow to her, call her his sovereign, his queen, create a little problem in the marriage, but they survived. The next slide is some more pictures of her royal regalia, one of her other crowns. But the picture that has the film strip in front of it where she's holding the royal scepter and she's got her father's crown on is just, that was her ordination. That she's got the royal robes on, she's sitting on the throne. And the film strip that I want you to watch is called, it says watch the video clip on the crown jewels. And so there's just a really short video clip that talks about the crown on her head. So I want you to watch that. Let's see here. Some more pictures of her and her hubby, Prince Philip. He's, I believe, a year or 2 older than her. So he's 96 or so, and she's 94. He basically gave up his public responsibilities because the entire royal family has responsibilities that they have to do in order to maintain good standing with the people and receive their money they get paid for by taxpayers' dollars. But the picture that I wanted to draw a special attention to is the picture of them when they were first married, and then the picture of them just a few years ago, and how similar their expressions are, their mannerisms. Is just quite cute. All right, the next picture is Queen Elizabeth today. This picture of her was taken about 2 weeks ago. And she's got her classic pearls on, which she most often wears. She's sitting in one of her rooms at Windsor Castle. And she is addressing her nation, the nation of the United Kingdom, which the Queen will do from time to time if there's something extremely important that she feels she needs to communicate. And England is currently getting pummeled by COVID-19. Their prime minister almost died from it. And so England is going through the same thing we're going. People are in lockdown. People are staying in their homes. Their hospitals in London and larger cities have been pretty overwhelmed. They have a pretty significant high death rate. And so the Queen was whisked off to her summer castle. Her son, Prince Charles, who is the heir to the throne, contracted coronavirus, but I haven't heard anything about it in weeks, so I guess he's fine. Prince Albert, who is another one of the royal family, also contracted it. And so they have put her kind of out of reach of everybody because she's so old. And so anyway, there's about a 5-minute video that I want you to watch of her very formal and very sweet address to her country. You'll get to hear her voice, and I'm just shocked at how strong her resolve is, and how eloquent she speaks, and how well she speaks, and how clear she is for a woman of her age. She still does all of the public outings. She does all of the professional presentations of the military and all kinds of stuff. So she's quite the lady. And then this is where my love fest for the royal family comes into play. So the next picture, you see her in her green waving her hand, and that is her grandson, William and Kate. William is, so you'll see, so in the picture, they're all on a balcony. The men are wearing their red uniforms. The women have their hats on. Queen Elizabeth is looking up and she's waving. I'm not sure what they're looking at, but so her grandson is standing right next to her. Her son, her husband is behind her. Her son, Charles, is over to the left with a woman that has a white hat on. So that is Prince Charles. That is her oldest son. You saw the picture of him as a young child in a previous slide. He is the heir to the throne. He is the Prince of Wales. The title for the heir to the throne is Prince or Princess of Wales. And I don't know if he'll ever become king because she's still kicking. So he may die before she does. He's in his 70s, I believe, which isn't that old, but hopefully he's got his mama's DNA. And so he is the Prince of Wales. And then William, who is her grandson, who's standing right next to her with his wife Kate. He is the third in line for the throne, and then the little boy who is saluting in front of her grandson is George, and George is fourth in line for the throne. William was Princess Diana's oldest son. She had two sons, William and Harry. The next picture is one of my favorite pictures ever. It is the four generations of the heir to the British throne. You have Queen Elizabeth with her son, Prince Charles seated next to her. Charles is the one that was married to Princess Diana. And then you have her grandson William over to the far right, and then her cute little grandson George sitting next to her. The next is a family photo of the christening of William and Kate's youngest son. I think it's a boy. And the family behind them. The next picture is actually Harry and Meghan Markle. They just recently got married. I guess it's been 2 years now. Harry is the youngest son. He's the redhead of Princess Diana and Prince Charles. And Meghan is seated on the ground with all of her her little flower girls and everything around them. They got married a couple of years ago. There are several pictures of them. You see Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth and the rest of the family there. Beautiful family photo. Some pictures of Harry and Meghan's wedding. The next picture shows them actually walking out of the church, out of the chapel, with a choir kind of surrounding them. And there is a video clip that I want you to watch. That's just a very short video clip that shows about 5 minutes or so of their wedding at the very end. And they sing God Save the Queen, and then they leave the wedding. That's kind of how the wedding service ends. But one of the things I want you to notice about this video, so historically, the British Empire was the most prolific purveyor of the slave trade in the history of humankind. They profited and made more money on the African slave trade than any empire in human existence. Fortunately, they were one of the first empires to end the slave trade and reverse course on that. But considering the history of the British and the African slave trade, I just think it's really, really cool that a member of the royal family married somebody that has African descent. So Meghan Markle's mom is, I think she's from the islands. I can't remember which ones, but she has African descent. And you'll see her in the wedding pictures and video. And I just think that, wow, they have come a long way. And so now in the royal line, the British royal line, is somebody that has African heritage as part of their history. And then about a year ago, they had a baby. There's a picture of them revealing the baby to the reporters. There's a picture of the christening with the whole family, all of Harry's family. Then there's a picture of the Queen seeing the baby, her youngest grandson, for the very first time. That grandson would be, let me think here, in line for the throne, like 5th or 6th in line for the throne. Not going to happen, but you never know. And so she's delighted to meet her grandson. That's Meghan's mom right behind her. And then we have some pictures of Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace is the Queen's residence if she's in London, depending on seasonally, she might be there at different times. There's some pictures of Buckingham Palace. Very ornate and beautiful. It is Buckingham Palace where the changing of the guard takes place and where a lot of tourists visiting London will take pictures outside of Buckingham Palace. There is a film strip in front of a picture of Buckingham Palace, and that picture, you can peer into the courtyard of Buckingham Palace and see even here, they have a courtyard, a green space. You can't see the grass in it, but you can see how it's built around a courtyard and all of the people out in front. The Queen will from time to time be in her carriage and pass through there. Not very often anymore, but there's a video clip that will take you just very briefly inside Buckingham Palace into the largest room, which is the dining room, and I think the video says it serves over 170 people or something crazy like that. And then some just historical features. The Tower of London, you'll see there next to the bridge. This is where the royal jewels are kept. I think it was built by the Normans. Some more pictures of the Tower of London. I've actually been in that building. and have seen many of the royal jewels. It's very, very cool. There's some pictures of the royal jewels there. Let's see here. So the tiara that has the green emeralds on it, there's a picture that has just a tiara. That is Queen Elizabeth's favorite tiara. The Tower Bridge, it was built in the 1880s. It's an iconic symbol in London. The Big Ben, the tower, the clock tower that's in London. Westminster Abbey, which is a church and has served as a place of weddings. It's also a burial location. Ubers and numbers of important British people are buried in Westminster Abbey. I've been in there myself, and it's really weird to be walking across the floor and think that you're stepping on the bodies and caskets of famous people, kings and queens. But most of the kings and queens are buried in, their bodies are in sarcophaguses above ground. St. Paul's Cathedral is another famous church. Okay, so here are some of the people that are buried in Westminster Abbey. So Queen Elizabeth I, Henry V, Henry VII and his wife are buried together. Isaac Newton is buried there. Mary, Queen of Scots. Oh, if I had time, I'd tell you the story about her. She's the mother of King James I. Queen Elizabeth had her knocked off. Mary, Queen of Scots, apparently kept trying to have Queen Elizabeth of England assassinated. Finally, an assassin reached Mary, Queen of Scots. And as it turned out, when Queen Elizabeth died, she didn't have an heir to the throne. So Mary's son, King James of the King James Bible, becomes King of England. Charles Dickens, who wrote the Christmas Carol. Just a whole bunch of people. I don't know if you guys will know the names of those people, but I recognize a few of them. Let's see here. St. Paul's Cathedral is where Princess Diana was married. There's some pictures there of Princess Diana's wedding with Prince Charles. I woke up at 2 or 3 in the morning and watched that wedding take place because I thought it was so amazing. Downtown London, some of the entertainment district, another picture of Stonehenge. Sorry, this video is way too long. Bath, England, which is a very famous place to visit. It's a Roman province, a Roman city, and you can tell by looking at it. England was part of the Roman Empire. Finally, last few things. There's some really cool physical features in between Northern Ireland and England. One of them is called the Giant's Causeway, and you'll see a bunch of weird looking stones, and they look like steps. Urban legend is that the giants between those countries would make their way across the ocean between Northern Ireland and Scotland by crossing through the causeway there. And then, let's see, last couple things. Most people that visit England will go to Ireland as well. And on that map that shows the northern part or the southern part of Ireland, you'll see the Cliffs of Moher. It's a very famous place to visit. It's incredibly beautiful. I had a friend that just visited there, and the day they were there, it was so windy that they didn't want to get too close to the edge because they were scared. And they saw a bride out taking photographs, and her veil and her dress was flying in the wind. And they heard the next day that the wind had caught her dress and she had died, that she had fallen off these cliffs. They don't know for sure if it was true, but at the time they thought, what is that lady doing? And then finally, the last picture on the slide is a picture of my niece Lucy. The day that my sister's family visited the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland last year, it was horribly cloudy and foggy, and that is as much as they could see. So bummer for them. Okay. I'm almost on an hour on this video, so between the video and the video clips you're going to watch, it'll be about a 90-minute class period. I don't have any homework for you other than I'm going to send you the instructions for the travel brochure, and if you want to start working on that between now and Wednesday, you can, or if you want to wait until Thursday, if you want to wait till after Thursday, you can. So anyway, love you guys, miss you. Sorry this took so long, and I will see you on Thursday. Bye.